previous presentations that they have done for us, and once again they've graciously offered to show us something new. This month, bandsaw boxes. We wanted to do it now so that those of you that are so inclined might want to take what you see here and possibly generate some holiday gifts. I was thinking about being really ambitious. I may just open my wallet instead. And with that, I'll use that as a little bit of a segue. These are boxes, and I'm sure Mohammed and Alice will tell you about it, but that they've made in the past. They were in the business of selling these for a while. They're all on sale for 50% off the marked price, correct?
Plus there will be a $5 per box donation to the club.
And plus a $5 donation per box to the club. So after the meeting, for those of you that are interested, please don't be shy. I should also say that Mohammed asked me to acquire a particular blade that he likes using from PS Wood Machines, one of the Timberwolf bandsaw blades. I think some of you probably already use those blades. I called them, told them what I was doing, and they graciously sold me the blade at a 50% discount. I played with the blade a little bit last night, got it on the machine. It's pretty much everything that they advertise in terms of its quality of construction and welds and everything else. For those of you that are not aware, they're located in the Bethel Industrial Park in the South Hills. So, like we always encourage, if you like what you see and are able to give some business to our local merchants, especially those that are good enough to offer us discounts, that would be a wonderful thing. And that's, we're not just talking that up anyway, that is a really good bandsaw blade. It has a lot of positive attributes, and perhaps Mohammed will even talk about them just a little bit, but otherwise, go online and you can find plenty of information and glowing reviews of it. So with that, I'm going to turn this over, except, Jay, sorry Jay. Do you want to be there, or do you want to be in close?
No, I want to be right here.
Okay. Cameraman's ready, so Mohammed Hasibi.
Okay, I'm going to take over.
Yeah, she's going to take over as she usually does. And she's going to talk about the design, because this is a cooperative type of a work that we have done throughout our marriage. And it's gone from pottery to stained glass to woodwork right now. She, in all cases, does the design, and I would sort of modify that design to make it feasible to make. And with that in mind, I'll just let her explain. One thing, additional thing, my background, basically, I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer, and I have been working on I'm 78 years old. I'm still working and enjoy doing my work as well as my hobby, and this is our hobby. Now let's go ahead.
Okay, good morning everybody. Can you all hear me in the back of the room? Everybody can hear me? Okay. I've got that teacher voice because I'm a former art teacher. I have a background in art, and so as you can see, I've done the design work here, and as Mohammed explained to you, I hand it over to him and he fabricates. Just a little background on how we got started. We were on a trip going through West Virginia down to North Carolina, and we stopped at a place called Tamarack, which is, they bill themselves as the best of West Virginia. And it's an art store, which is a mega art store, and they have anything there from handmade saddles to handmade clothing to jewelry to blown glass to woodworking to you name it, they have it, and it's all done by West Virginia artists.
That was in 2003.
That was a long time ago, but anyway, we saw a bandsaw box, and I said to him, you know, I think we could do this. And with anything in life, there's a trick to it. And once you learn that trick, you can figure it out from there on, and it sort of just snowballs into what you're going to end up with. So we came home and I started doing some design work just on paper, just some scratch paper. And I came up with, well, a design, I'll show the camera, a design like this, which is sort of a snake design. I'm not sure if anybody in the back of the room can see it how I'm holding it, but the camera will see it. And it basically was just a sketch. And from there, we ended up with the box designed like a snake. Now, when you say a box, you're thinking of something rectangular, square. Well, when we basically started out, we started out like that. I'm going to show you the first couple boxes that we made. This first one doesn't look like much, but it has one drawer to it that comes out, comes back in.
Very crude.
Very heavy, very thick, and so it's not really as useful as it could be. A second one we made was a little more ornate. We came out with 2 drawers. Now this particular drawer, I'm going to pull it out. It has actually 2 spaces for depositing jewelry, money, paper clips, whatever you want to keep in it. A second drawer, again, has 2 separate areas to use to deposit whatever you're going to put in it. Well, these were the first 2. As you can see, I had a little trouble putting that one back in. They don't fit real well. They're sort of clumsy. They're very heavy, awkward. And we ended up coming up with some crazy designs of a variety of different things that we have here today. And as you can see, they range anywhere from the little animals that we have over on the far end to something as unusual as, I'll hold this box up for you. This one actually has a handle in the back, right here, and it has a handle in the front. And you actually, I'm going to put it up here, you actually have to hold it with 2 hands to open it up. It slides open, and there's a separate little drawer that comes out. These are 2 areas here to put things in, and then it closes back up, putting it together like that. That's a very different one. Most of the boxes are straightforward. They're more little sculptures that just happen to have drawers in them. The drawers are generally lined. We've done flocking. We've also done like a velvet paper that's a stick-on paper or contact paper. That didn't work out as well. The flocking works a lot better. So I think I will just turn it over to Mohammed. This is the mommy box that he has, and we're going to do the baby box today. And you want to show the finished one?
Well, this is a finished one of the one that we're going to try today. I've made a couple different things on the new one, but you will see as we go along. Okay, basically, one of the things that I want to emphasize is that when we saw this box in Tamarack, I said, and she said, you know, we could make that. And I said, yeah, I think we can. We came home and I started thinking. One of the things that I said is that I want to create something without copying anybody else. For that reason, I never looked at any book or any bandsaw boxes made by others. And so I won't be copying somebody else other than that one piece that we saw in Tamarack. As we started, obviously we found that it is very difficult to work with a bandsaw. Well, let me define why do we call it a bandsaw box. The reason for it is that the design of the box lends itself only to using a bandsaw. It would be because it's not a square shape where you can do with the normal tools. So bandsaw is imperative to have for this purpose. So when we started with a bandsaw, it was difficult to begin with to try to come up with a blade that works well. And I tried many different blades, and finally ended up with that P.S. Wood Timberwolf, they call it. And I believe these are made, the blades are made in Sweden, and they are high silicon steel. The front part of the blade is hardened, the back part of the blade is soft steel to allow that flexibility. It can get twisted and do a lot of things without causing problem. Also, one big advantage of it is that it minimizes the burning, heating and burning, particularly when you're doing a wood like cherry. So some of the other items or tools that we use, other than bandsaw and the bandsaw blades, are basically a sander. A sander like this, it becomes invaluable for doing tight corners. For example, sometime when you want to do the inside or underneath some of these places that is very hard to do by hand, particularly hardwood like cherry or maple, it would lend itself, because by just starting here and moving it on the edge, you could just clean some of these that would be difficult to do. That is difficult to do by hand. In addition to that, one tool that is very handy is one of those spindle sanders where it moves up and down. And that would be very important, and oftentimes I probably have used it in most of these. The other tool that I found handy for those of you who don't have the machine, you could use your drill press and have a kit like this to be able to get inside some of the cutouts to clean and sand. But no matter what tools you use, the bandsaw boxes are extremely handwork intensive. It takes hours and hours. If you want it to look professional, it takes hours and hours to do hand sanding. In fact, in 6 years that I did, there was so much activity and work with my hands that I developed some issues with rheumatoid arthritis. When I went to the doctor, I said, oh, you've overused your shoulders and your hands. And I said, well, what's the solution? He says, you've got to do less of it. And I said, well, that won't happen. And so they gave me some medication, and after a while I stopped taking the medication. But anyway, then I moved away after about 6 or 7 years of doing the bandsaws to doing regular furniture. The last bandsaw box I made, I think, was probably about 3 years ago. But anyway, what we do, first of all, you start with a block of wood, like this. There's a block of walnut, and somebody asked me, probably everybody said, where the hell do you get these? Well, I live on a farm, okay, and 100-acre farm, and there were, when we built our house, there were a lot of trees that we cut for lumber that we used in the house. There were walnut, oaks, cherry, and some of these woods, you know, there are pieces about this big at the bottom when you cut the tree. You know, I let these logs sit somewhere and let it dry up, and which was going to be used for firewood. And eventually some of these I took to a friend with a bandsaw, cut pieces and let it sit for about 10-15 years, air dry. So I had a lot of pieces of wood like that available to me to do these bandsaw boxes. Some of the wood that are not, all the cherry just about, all the walnut, all the oak, all of those are from our own farm. But there's a lot of exotic wood than in here that are not, that I have purchased. Oftentimes you don't find a big block like that, or you may find a 2-inch piece. And in that case, you can laminate the 2-inch piece and get a block whereby you could use for that purpose. Sometimes actually you may want to do something like this, where you get a whole bunch of pieces of scrap that you have. You can cut them a certain length and glue them together and make a piece like this. Now, when you do that, it looks a lot easier than when you try to do. Number one, your cutting pieces have to be perfectly square. And that's not as easy to do because if you don't have them perfectly square, when you put them together, you get gaps. So it is very work intensive when you do that kind of work. If you start it, do it with a small piece, and you will find how difficult it is to get them perfect. But anyway, once you get your wood and you have your design, and make your initial design fairly simple. Do not have sharp, very sharp curve. With this particular blade that I use, I can make a radius of about a little over 1/8 of an inch. The radius, that means it is extremely hard. You will find a few pieces there. I don't try them all the time because one of the things that is going to happen is when you go with such a small radius, or I said 1/8 of an inch, it may be a little more than 1/8, but it's close. If you look at it, it's about a 1/4 inch round. One of the things that happens when you start cutting there is that you're going to twist the blade a little bit. And the other thing that happens that is very critical, and that this comes only with experience, the speed that you move, okay? When you are cutting a nice, easy curve, you go very relatively easy, and until you get close to the edge, to where you have to make a turn. And at that point, you really got to move, because if you don't, you're going to go off the line, you're going to go ruin the piece. That is the hardest part, is going into a small radius and learning to adjust your speed, how quickly you turn that piece so you don't go offline. And that only comes by experience, and there's no way you can start the first time or a second or third time to do it. Even for me, that I have not done some for a couple of years, 3 years, even though I know that, the first thing I was trying on this piece, test piece, I ran over the curvature. And if I had done it on this one, I probably would have ruined it. So it is difficult, and when I made this, I'm going to probably modify a little bit because of the curvatures, to make it a little easier curve, because of the fact that I'm not familiar with this particular bandsaw. And you have to get used to your bandsaws, what you can do with it, what you can't do. Okay, now we got a block, and I tried to get a little jump ahead of it. I cut the outside. Okay, so we started from here, cut the outside. That's the first thing you do. Once you cut the outside, you then sand the outside, get it fairly smooth, because it is easiest to do it at this point. Now, one thing about attaching your design. First of all, when you make a design, when Alice made a design, she would probably make a little tiny little thing, maybe about 3 inches, 2 inches in diameter. Well, obviously, that is no good for me. So what I need to do is I needed to first select a piece of wood. I said, what size do I want to make this? Once I selected the piece of wood and see what I have, then I said, okay, this has to be about 8 inches in this diameter. Like from here to here, or from here to here, must be about, let's say, 5 by 8 or something like that. Then I have available to me at work a Xerox copier where I can scale it up to 5 times or shrink it, whatever I need. So I enlarge or shrink it to the size that I need. And then once I did that, got the final copy, make 3 or 4 copies of that particular one. You don't make only one. You could go to the office supply places if you don't have, most of you probably available, the ability to reduce. They have these machines there, and with a few dollars you can exactly enlarge them or shrink them to what you want. Once you get the paper, you need to sand that surface that you're going to apply your design. It is also very critical that you make your block square, okay? You have to cut and make it square, so these angles are 90 degrees. This particular piece is a little bit off. I didn't take the time to make it perfect, but it is important that angles to be correct, because once you put it in the bandsaw, you want this surface and this surface to be parallel, so your blade cuts vertical rather than at an angle. Once you get this, I use generally this Loctite or 3M makes the sprays like that. Do not use the type of the sprays that are permanent, because for a couple of things. It's difficult to get off, and secondly, if you try to sand them off, some of those, it blinds your sandpaper and ruins the sandpaper. So this type, you use it very lightly, allow it to almost become tacky, partially dry, then put it on and press, and that would work long enough to be able to finish it. Now that I have this one, and what is the procedure from here on? First thing you want to do, number one is to mount it on there, make sure the block is a square, mount your design on it, cut the outside, sand the outside, now you end up with this, yes.
What grit do you sand that to before you glue that on?
I would usually probably 100, 120, 150, something like that. Final sanding, I usually do 200 or something like that.
But for the surface for the paper?
For that, I would say 100, because you will be doing some sanding after the finish, getting the whole thing made. The next step is that we have to take a slight cut in the back to separate a piece. And this piece is going to be used at the final stages to be glued back to become the back of the piece, okay? I have now this set up to get that cut. Now that cut usually doesn't have to be too heavy. It could be a quarter-inch thick or a little less, depending on how bulky your piece is, how fine you want it to be. I have it a little less than a quarter-inch here.
shaking is never a good sign.
It's not bad. It's a little bit off, but
There's probably some set in
you
that blade.
see. Now that could be one of the two things, movement of the blade, or it could be the original block was not perfectly square. Okay? That would do it. I would tend to say in this case, it was because not the blade, it was because the block wasn't perfectly 90 degrees. And that's why it's narrower here and a little bit thicker here. But anyway, this is the back, okay? I cut it here like this. So what I need to do, what you need to do, at least I do it this way all the time. I put an X here, indicating that this is the outside surface. Okay? I put this aside, we'll get back to it. That would be one of the last things we do. Do not sand or do anything to this surface, or to that surface, or you won't get a good bind, because there is no way that you could sand this perfectly flat, sand that perfectly flat. Leave this alone, okay? And you saw the speed that I moved in. It doesn't have to be too fast to get the thing done, just because if you go too fast, you also have a tendency to cut crooked. The next thing we want to do is to try to get the doors cut out. Now, to get the doors cut out, there are many different ways to try.
You know, we never check to see if the blade was square. We don't want to look at that. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yikes.
It's not.
Okay then. Would you like it square?
Yes. But anyway, to try to cut the doors out. You see these shapes that I have now on here? We need these shapes completely cut out so a piece we can take out to make the door from. Now how can we do that? Well, there are many ways of doing it. I can come in like this here and cut this out, come in here, cut that out, come here, cut that out. But then I have had 3 cuts into the piece. That's not the best way. Ideally, you want to try to minimize the number of cuts you make. The other possibility is I can draw a line going from here all the way straight across, cut it like that, then cut this out, and then glue this back on. However, I still have to deal with this one. And I can come in with this one, probably at some corner like that, cut this out. Again, that's too many cuts. One trick that I learned is that I come over here and I can make a hole all the way through. Okay? Now I have a hole which touches each one of these corners. You see that? Then I can come in here and cut into this with one cut, go through all 3 of these and cut them out. One cut. Now, depending on your shape, that cut, once you cut everything else, if these are thin like this, you could actually slightly press it together and glue it, or you could leave it and fill it with a material you can't even see. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go through here. Since the drill press is over there, we're going to do that. There are several methods. You see, for example, if you look at this piece, this was cut 2 ways. First thing, a hole was made in the center. See right here? And then I put a dowel rod in there after I did all of my cutting. The other thing that I did to get to all of these, I cut this right here in the middle in half, and that allowed me, no, that's not, that's because of that cut is not for that, that's just when I attach the pieces together. I did it here, and probably in one of these sides I cut into there, into this hole, and from the hole I cut all of the other ones out. The technique of using a hole is very effective, and it could be attractive. You could use the same wood, the same texture. You could use a contrasting wood that would make it nice. Now again, if you look here, the same techniques are used. Drill here, and this time I drilled and left the hole open as a decoration. You don't have to fill it in. But I could have put a dowel rod in this hole and this hole, but as you see, your drawer also on that side has that curvature, which adds to some degree to the design of the piece. Now that we have our piece completely drilled, just check. Good.
You thought I switched drill bits
I
on?
know, I just want to make sure. All right.
What's he trying to say? That first cut was way out of square.
It was.
It had to be 2 degrees out.
Yeah, it was way out. It's more important, that's not as critical as these door cuts.
Unfortunately, that back face is now not going to be perpendicular to your sides.
Okay,
So don't come too close to your line.
okay.
So we like to throw little shop tips out there. Some of you might be thinking, why on earth would that table be sitting there at 2 degrees off square? Because, or 1 degree maybe, because you can't really see that. That's exactly what's going through my mind. We have a rule in the shop. If you do any sort of cut, 1, 2, 3 degrees on a machine, you never walk away from the machine until you put the fence or the table back to square, because the next user that walks up can't tell that it's out of square. So somebody, I hope it wasn't me, violated that rule on that machine.
Okay, now what we're going to do is you have drilled, and you can see the hole going all the way through, and we can access all these 3 doors. So I'm going to make one cut from here over. Can you see it on the screen? Or my pen? Right here, come into this circle. And then I can maneuver and try to cut those out.
Does it make any difference which side of the line you cut on?
It doesn't, you try to keep it right on the line, but it depends how much clearance you leave for yourself.
What blade thickness and height tubes are you using there?
Is .025. It's a fairly thin blade.
Their spec at PS is a 3/16 by 4 tooth. It's a skip tooth blade that they call PC. I'm not quite sure what PC stands for, as opposed to, they have a bunch of other ones, but that's the one that's what that is. 4 teeth per inch.
Now, you would see, now here's your piece that has been cut out. I did actually, because of this piece also not being square, the back is a little thinner, but again, when you do your own, you can do that. Now, the other thing too is you see this piece here? You can just squeeze it together and glue it, okay? And typically, the tolerances that you have within these allows the door to fit, and even if it doesn't, you do a little bit of sanding. Now, very critical thing. You put this down, you put this back into where they come from. You have to mark where the front is, where the back is, and how to line the these pieces, the front and back, because we're going to cut the front and back of each one of these. So you need to know where they go. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take, as it is, I'm taking these out like that. I have to mark a couple of marks. Can you see that? Can you see where I marked like a, basically you mark it something like that on that side, and on the back side you could do a double mark. See?
Let's show the camera.
Yeah, you're good.
Can you see it in the lines? Pencil mark?
Not really. Want to point at him a minute? Yeah, the arrow, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You mark that on all the doors. Because what we're going to do, we're going to cut the front of this out, back of this out, and then hollow this and glue the two back ends together, okay? So this one is marked. Wait a minute. Yeah, also remember, when you mark these, you've got to mark them on the bottom of the door, not on the top, because you're going to cut the top out. Okay? This one is marked incorrectly. You see how little things could mess you up. Okay, these are marked. That's marked. And this one is the bottom here. Now here comes the next step.
Mohammed didn't tell me he needed a fence.
You're supposed to know.
I know.
Read my
I
mind.
know, exactly. Let me ask Alice about trying to read your mind. Any advice?
It doesn't work.
I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah, even if you had asked, I didn't have one, so we're at the same place.
Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to take a little slice of front and the back. That's the easy part. The hard part, we'll have to hollow that on that little ones.
Another thing you might want to remember is to number the drawers and number them on your design, because sometimes the shape of the drawers is very similar. If you try and put the line where it doesn't go, that
Sorry.
Here's a push stick one. Just a quick little safety note there for the new members or people who haven't used the bandsaw much. Notice that when Mohammed was pushing, no thumbs directly behind the blade. He waited until he had enough material downstream of the blade. He reached around, and that's how he controlled his offcut, by reaching around the blade, not pushing from the front with his thumbs near the bandsaw blade.
Okay, the next move. Here's the piece. This is a drawer that goes in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a decision as how much I want to cut. Actually, let me put this, yeah. It's hard to see it. I'll mark it, then I let you see it. Back on there, and that would hold it all together. And one other thing that we want to do usually is the handles. There are all kinds of handles you can put on the doors, that you could get the brass handles, you can get ready-made handles. But the important thing is you have to look at the design of the whole thing. The handle should carry the design. Now, I have the tendency as an engineer use a brass handle or a ready-made, and I always get help. That looks terrible. It has to carry the same concept. So what I would do is I would get a piece of wood and I sort of carry the curvature of this to make the little handles to be able to grab, and it looked a hell of a lot better than the handles that are ready-made, even though pretty brass handles or knobs or something like that. So all the recent ones that I did, the handles were made individually to match the curvature or the design of the thing itself. We do not use this glue, okay? The glue we use is, I picked up the wrong bottle, but the standard Tide Bond 1, the original one, is the best glue to use. It remains open long enough, you can maneuver things, and it is hot, strong enough, and I always use that. And then obviously, when you're putting the back panel in, you're putting some of the stuff, you get a little bit of glue around. So it's imperative again, after it is done, for a final sanding. Now, I try not to stain any of my boxes. I try to use the wood color to come through. Now, you prefer to have a stain, of course, it's your choice, you could do that. Here are the 3 handles that I made. They're tiny little things, it's hard to see. Yes, I'll put it on one of them so you can see how the handle is done. It's regular, fairly easy. And these other ones, let's see, I have to cut this one yet. That I haven't done. I might as well do this for...
Yeah, if we're going to break the blade, we'll break it at the end.
Huh? Yeah.
If we're going to break the blade, we break it now.
Well, my concern, well, I need to mark it, I need that, so I'll wait a little bit. Is there any question?
I'm curious about this walnut dowel that you have here.
Okay.
Can you show us on a finished box? I didn't see. What is its purpose, please?
The purpose of it, you can leave it open, okay? Here's a piece, for example, that was done with the same concept, cut here and cut here. And I did not put the dowel rods in there because it looked good the way it is. But there are some here where the dowel rod has been put in and it closed. And I'm sure. Now, come on, where are you?
This one out front.
Here's another one that is open. Oh, is that?
And then there's this one here and this one here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, these two.
Okay.
Now, this is the same color, but
Share
sometimes
the camera.
you do it.
Turn around, show the cameras.
You see the dowel rod? It's upside down. Dowel rod here, and the other one you see is this one, which I use the same type of a wood dowel rod to cover the hole. It's your choice. You could do it. You could cover it, or you could leave it open. I use a lot of time dowel rods just to emphasize or decorate. Here's one, for example, that you see at the bottom.
Can I ask you a question on that one? If you show the camera the back of it, you'll see it's a different type of wood.
Yes.
How did you get the registration when you cut it out?
How did I, well, what I did is when I cut the piece,
Glue it together first and then...
no, when I cut the piece, in this particular, no, I don't think I did that. I cut the piece, took the original cut out, put it on here, and marked it up, cut it again, glued it back on, and redid with the sander
Okay.
to get it to match.
So those that don't employ the use of the dowel, you've got those long, thin, short-grained pieces that are supporting the drawers. Apparently they don't snap off.
No, they don't. They don't snap up. It seems to be fine. And if you put the dowel rod in, it also, what I like is put a curvature on the edge of the door sometimes.
Right.
And it looks good, and it gives it a lot of strength, or you can leave it open, or you can have a hollow point to emphasize. You can have now this one that, for example, you see here, I was going to do 3 holes here. That I have the tools here, I was going to do that, but because of the time frame, I'm not going to do it. Where I use a Forstner bit and go down a 1/4 inch or something with 3 different sizes, and put the dowel, little pieces of dowel rod, glue them in, sand them in, and it just adds a little bit of decoration to the piece. Now, since you want to practice, I'll leave that for you to practice.
So there's no pith in that. That was like a 16-inch diameter tree. Is there a pith in there or not?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is.
What was the question?
He wants to know if there was a pith in this block of wood.
Oh, I see it, okay. Yeah,
You see it?
yeah, so the tree was about 12 inches in diameter.
3 was probably, yes, 12, 14 inches. As I said, a lot of, right now, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I had a couple of old walnut trees, black walnut, quite probably about 15 inches in diameter, that lightning had hit and damaged them. And I cut them down for the firewood. Now those things have dark sections in it, at least this diameter. And I probably would take some of those logs that I cut about this size, I might even bring it over here and run it through the bandsaw, because I don't have a big bandsaw, to get with 10 by 10 or 8 by 8 pieces. And then I would probably cover the ends with some paint or something. One tree is already dry, so there's no danger, so it would crack. Okay.
Let me ask you about the fit between the drawer and the body. So you've got a bandsaw cut, arguably 25, 30,000, something like that,
Right.
and you're sanding the inside of the box and the outside of the drawer.
The only sanding I do, I make no attempt to make the inside extremely smooth.
Okay?
I just get the sharp edges off, because you don't want to sand too much to increase that distance.
That's my question. So when they finish, where are we? 50 thousandths play?
I would say that 50,000 is the maximum probably.
So less than a 1/16 of an inch?
Yeah.
Okay.
But when they do a good job, it's probably less than a 16. If I have several cutouts to get them in, to get to the door, it'll be less than that, because then the places where I cut out, I usually clamp them,
Right.
and they
It's
bring
small.
them together smaller. Now, one other trick. You see, if I decided at one point, somebody would pull this and they'd fall out. The door falls out. I wanted the idea of the door not to come all the way out. So what I did is after the thing was completed, before I put after everything is done, I would take a piece of wood, I bring this out to a point where I decide by doing it this way, it's not going to come out. I have a little piece of wood and I put it up here with a clamp and glue it in there. The result is now the doors won't fall out.
And to put them in, you just hook it up underneath it?
Yeah, it hooks up to the edge of because you figure if a piece of wood is a little thicker than the clearance here,
Show the camera.
if the piece of wood has a little more, you see how the clearance is in here? About a little over 1/16 of an inch. And if you put a piece of wood and you glued it up here, it comes up to here and it no longer fall out and you can reach all the way inside. That has an advantage. So accidentally when you pull out, you don't drop the door and have, if you have stuff in it, to fall all over. Some of the newer ones that I have that feature, but they can be added relatively easy. Yes.
What do you finish it with?
The question is, what does he finish it with?
Generally, I've done several different types of finish. The one that I use in most of these are polyurethane, and I would use usually a flat or semi-gloss. And I do probably half a dozen finish. Finish, sand it, finish, sand it, finish, sand it, to get the real texture, almost like a hand-dropped oil. If you touch some of these, you will feel that texture that you get with a hand drop. And the only way you get it is you got to do it several times and sand it down several times and sand it down. I have used some oil finish. It works good, but I find urethane really works well for me. Yes.
Question. One time, Bill James made a comment that anytime you build a piece of furniture, you finish all sides. So naturally, you would probably want to finish all sides of your drawer. When do you put your flocking in, and how do you do it?
The flocking is done after everything is completed. We have here a flocking package. You can buy them in powder form in bags like that. Then you have this type of a pump, and you fill it up with the flocking. You take your piece, there's a special glue. You apply with a brush inside the door.
This is after you already have the finish on.
After everything is done, after finishing, completely done. You put the glue on, thin and even, places where you want the flocking, and then you put your door inside. I have a box here. You see that? How you put, and you do it all around the piece. Turn the piece around, bang it in here so you don't waste it. Let it dry, and after it's dry, I vacuum it to get any loose piece out of it. And that's a permanent adhesion, and it looks very nice. It works well for small pieces. Flocking wouldn't be as effective if you had a large area to do, but for inside these boxes, it's perfect. Any other question?
Does that come in like a dark brown? Anybody ever seen that infomercial? I'm not making that up. Some spray on the back.
There are those sprays.
I've seen them.
It looks horrible. My audiologist had about half a dozen hair up here, and he would spray that. Oh my God, it was horrible.
You think we're ready there?
I think this is ready.
Try me. If it was Halloween, I'd let you put the green on this.
Okay, now we have this one. The next thing we want to do is the dowel one. What I'm going to do, you could actually do it one. Right now it's fairly tight enough. You could force that in. It opens this up a little bit, but I'm not concerned about that because we can get that. We get that, and then
So it's not glued in then, or do you?
you don't need it. It's right now, the way I tapped it in, you'll have a hard time getting it out. Now,
This is clamp number 2. He's vice man.
okay, you get it here. Let me turn it around. Okay. Okay, that's pretty much, now I can sand this surface, okay? I want to do one more thing. I want to put a handle on this.
Alice, how long did it take you to talk him out of using ready-made brass handles on this?
Well, we had numerous discussions. He would call me down to the basement and say, now take a look at this. And I'd say, you can't do that. The handle has to be big enough for a person's fingers to reach in and hold the little handle, as well as the handle has to sort of follow the form of the box itself. And so we talked about little beads, little buttons, and then we talked about actually making the handles. So we ended up making a lot of handles.
How many years you been married?
Well,
You talk a lot more than me.
You learn.
And who was right?
rule number 1, the woman is always right.
Well, I wouldn't.
Yeah, we know that.
Well, I think that after I listened.
Careful now, careful.
After I listened,
Okay,
I
gentlemen.
found the benefits justified.
Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, Clam.
Just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
And with a handle on, and it's relatively simple handle, and it works well. It follows the curvature of the piece, and so with that in mind, the only thing now I would have done to finish this is I would have actually put some more glue probably inside there to hold it, and then I would have filled this up with a cherry type filler, so you wouldn't even see it. Then I would have this taken out, sand the entire front, sand the edge of this to make it nice round fit, sand here all around, no sharp edges, okay?
God damn this thing.
And you do it easily. Places like that, I use something like you could do for the rough stuff, some of these pieces, or you could do by hand this kind of a piece. So you have all kinds of options to do, whatever it pleases you. One more thing, I cut this one and then so that anybody who wants to finish it eventually can do that, because I don't want little piece like that to be cut.
Excuse me for 1 second.
You cut this.
As long as I know you, okay. When you hear the dumpster door fly open like that, and it's not you dumping, you have to check. So you wanted the box, just so you could know which end was up? Is that the only reason? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was something else. that-
No, that's the only reason, because I've done it when I didn't do it in the box.
Yeah.
I cut the wrong part. Okay. Now, when you get into small pieces like that, you have to be extremely careful from the point of safety, and you have to hold the piece in such a way that if by any chance you cut through, you don't get your finger. Okay? Yes.
What if you use like wood clamp or something, put around that, just real light, and then, your hands wouldn't be right on the little piece.
You could probably do that. You could probably put a wood clamp or something that keeps your hand away.
Right.
That would be also, actually would be a good way to do it.
You want to try it?
Yeah.
Let me get you a quick grip.
Maybe hard load it to a piece of wall or something.
Now you see also, I told you when you go around the bend on the sharp curve, you have to move quick. You also burn a little bit. Let's see.
One of those, two screw ones, if you put it all down on the table,
Yeah,
tighten it up.
the only hand screws I have though are real big, and I don't think he's going to be able to maneuver it, so.
I'm concerned with that one.
How about all the way down on the table?
Okay, let me
Try
try
that,
that.
that'll let you be stable.
Yeah, that would be much better. Okay, now that with this you can hold like that. Thank you for the suggestion. get used to holding it like that. I cut a little bit too short here. I had to come up a little more, and the curvature was a little too tight. But that would be, it always looks a lot easier than, am I using the right one? Yeah. These two are the ones that was added. Oh, two. Yeah, that's the one. It goes like that. No, that's the wrong one. This goes like that. Yeah, if I look at my marking, it would be a lot easier. It's amazing how confusing it can become when you have a lot of these drawers, particularly small ones. The big ones aren't as bad. But okay, basically, this is the one. It's going to look like that. Okay? That's just about it, unless you have some questions.
Any other questions for Mohammed? Well, I'll encourage you all to come up and take a look at everything when we're done here. And Mohammed and Alice, thank you so much.